Hello everyone and welcome to Pony 411, your newest pony podcast where we talk about pony news every week as we try. I'm LordFunkyFist and I'm hosting this week, and with me as always is Nemesis.
Yo, what's up?
And Four String.
I love you a lot.
And Artfan.
All of you listeners. Oh, hey, Artfan.
Yeah,
I mean, hi, I'm Artfan. I like Homestuck and Metallica. and derailing them and off the rails. And also FusionFox. Hi, I'm FusionFox. I'm British. What? I don't know.
What?
Yeah, we're missing two people this week. Although, really, we can probably just say we're only missing one person, because I think we're going to end up just saying FusionFox is a occasional contributor, as in when he can actually come in because of his job or something, I guess. Yeah, very sad, but one of these days we'll get his Britishness in here, and he can talk to us about really cool things like that those wipes that we're going to talk about
those
later.
peach wipes, yes.
Yeah.
Peach scented wipes.
Do they taste like peaches too? I'm starting to notice a trend because Art wasn't here when I hosted the last time, so I'm beginning to suspect some stuff.
Yeah, I think he just doesn't like Texans. I wouldn't either. You've got Rick Perry, and I'm very sorry about that.
Oh yeah, we're sorry about that too. Yeah. Anyway, I think that would be a good time to move on from that and get to the quick hits.
Quick hits. They're about
I think everyone would agree
pony news, and that's all. I'm gonna have a different
I've noticed
intro.
the theme song is not consistent every week.
That's all I was just saying. It's gonna be different every week.
Wait, we have a theme song for quick hits?
I'm creating one every week off the top of my head because I always forget to do one until the second you say the word. I'm just like, I don't know. We're very professional here at Pony 411.
Yes.
We take our jobs very seriously.
Our jobs that are non-profitable, of course.
Don't tell them that. We're getting paid all the money. At least I am. I don't know if you guys haven't gotten your checks yet, but I have.
I'll be sure to check my P.O. box.
Your P.O. box?
Hey, when you start a podcast, you gotta have a P.O. box.
You gotta have a P.O. box. If you don't have a P.O. box, what's this all been for? What's this all been about?
It makes you feel professional about it.
Yeah, I know. I used to never understood. I used to never understand what that meant when I was younger. Like when you would hear that, like watching Nickelodeon or something, they're like, "Send things."
Yeah.
I'm just like, what does that mean? What's a P.O. box? Is it like a mail box? Only it's like pissed off? I don't know. I don't get it. I just didn't register every morning when I was watching Legend of the Hidden Temple, because that was
man.
Oh my god, my stuff even, not necessarily that other word, but it was the thing that I watched often and wish was still on TV. One of these days, someone's gonna come forward and be like, "Hey, I have every single episode ever, and I'm putting it on YouTube." And I'm going to be like, I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to be like, okay, this is all I'm doing for like 2 weeks. And I'm serious here. And also, if it add in bonus, if they add guts or global guts into the equation, then I'm really done.
You're pretty much marked off as dead.
Yeah, I'm gonna be going underground for a while.
Legally declared dead. Rest in peace until you just come out like 5 weeks later.
Guys, why is this show not still on the air? And then I'm gonna start.
Why is this show not talking about ponies?
That's true.
Nickelodeon 411, everyone. Anyway, to start off our quick hits before something starts again.
Quick hits.
Andy Price and Katie Cook will be in Anaheim, California on November 14th to be part of a huge launch party of the official My Little Pony comics hosted by a place there, I forget, like Beach Ball Comics. I think it's a chain that they have there. If the names aren't familiar to you, I guess we can't blame you because they're just barely starting out, but they are the artists that are working on the official comic, so this will be a really good opportunity to go there, get a copy, and then have it signed by both of them, especially since both of them, Andy and Katie, live like in opposite sides of the U.S., so that'll be a really good chance to do that while you can. So that's over in a month, so you have plenty of time to start preparing for that. And to me, sounds like something fun to attend if I had the chance and was in California and had money.
Tony Victorino might be there.
I'll be sure to pass the word along to him. And by that I mean I won't. Anyway,
there might even be some Huggles given out. Who knows?
No. Some bro hoof huggles. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hooffuls, whatever. In much anticipated news, season 3 finally has a release date. Kind of. In a recent email, Hasbro has said that season 3 will air in November, and that's about all we've been told at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, we were wrong then.
We were.
Alas. We said October. Constance said, "Oh, it's going to come out in October." Nope.
I said
November. And I even heard from someone at Canterlot Gardens who has a pretty good connection with Hasbro. I'm not going to say who it was, but they said they were told October. So I was like expecting it to be October, and then it comes out November. So I don't know. At least we finally have something. It's now canon because Hasbro said so. So here we go.
The countdown has begun.
Exactly.
I'm just going to go to my calendar and just circle the entire month of November and just write ponies in question mark.
At some point.
Anyway, the second installment of Red Heart's Roundup, Bronies for Good's blood drive initiative has ended, with a grand total of 34 liters of blood donated to use in hospitals and other life-saving situations. The results of the corresponding raffle for participants will be announced later this week or early next. So that's a lot of blood.
I know.
34 liters.
Just in time for October.
I know. What a coincidence.
You can use it in your My Little Pony themed cupcakes haunted house or something. I don't know.
No, stop. What are you doing?
I'm giving people ideas. That's what I'm doing.
Don't do this.
Dad, no, please.
Anyway, a new Brony gaming group known as LunarCast has opened its doors to interested gamer bronies. Created by the website My Little Clan, the group is advertising itself as the first major group of its kind on YouTube, as well as the first Brony shoutcasting channel. The group, which they plan to play PS3 and PC titles, and as well as create commentaries a la Game Grumps and Yogscast, is looking for interested players. Shoutcasters, video editors, artists, and more are they're looking towards that. Sorry, for more info on that, don't laugh at my mistakes.
Point and laugh, everyone.
No.
No.
Let's just start the whole thing over. Podcast over.
Podcast is over.
Anyway, for more info, visit the My Little Clan website or email lunarcastarchives@gmail.com. So the address and the link towards the website will be provided as usual.
Yay.
SFX has conducted an interview with John Delancey about a plethora of topics, including his inclusion in the creation of the BronyCon documentary. If you'd like an update on how the documentary is coming, check out the link to the interview in the podcast description. It's always good to hear more about John Delancey working with the pony stuff.
I agree. He's a good man.
A new Brony article has also popped up in the Huffington Post detailing the fandom as a whole, as well as zeroing in on last week's Canterlot Gardens and Andrew W.K.'s guest spot there. And as always, you can check out the link to that story and everything else in the description that's below. And speaking of stuff, I had something going there, then it just flew out. The Jerry Springer Show also, by the way, has aired a new segment about the Brony fandom earlier this week, featuring two members of the fandom who kind of give Springer an idea of why they watch the show and cosplay as its characters. And people might remember this from like a tweet that was put out, I want to say a couple months ago, that they were
I don't think it was
looking
even a
for.
month ago. I think it was like a month ago even. It was very recently.
Yeah, like, I couldn't remember
Hmm.
exactly, but yeah, I want to say like a month, maybe two. Then they were looking for bronies for a segment they were doing about what was it, like guilty pleasures or weird something like that.
Yeah.
The as you would expect, the segment has come under some pretty heavy criticism from viewers claiming that the episode featured people claiming to be actors, and then when weren't actual bronies. So right now, I guess no one's sure if that's true or not, and I guess Jerry Springer does have a tendency to do that. And
Yes.
you can check out the
A
video in the
lot.
description. Like, I haven't seen Jerry Springer in like years up until seeing that clip, and I have to say
Neither have I, but
it wasn't that bad, all things considered.
yeah, but I know for a fact, Jerry Springer, they do not ever bother, like, deciding whether or not or checking to see whether or not the story they're going to feature is real or not.
Yeah,
I know there's tons of people who actually go on there and fake a fight or whatever just so they can get on the Jerry Springer show.
yeah.
That's it. So
Isn't what Jerry Springer usually is? Just people just fighting anyway.
yeah,
Oh,
and people fight fake stuff all the time just to get on. So it wouldn't surprise me if these were two people who had no idea what they were talking about.
yeah. But yes, like this could have easily become another whole True Fox incident on Tyra Banks. So thankfully, it wasn't that. It didn't turn out like that. And even if they were actors, like I said, it pales in comparison to a lot of the stuff you'll see on the internet about bronies. So now, moving on from that, if you ever want to wash your hands of ponies, the next item will be for you. In Europe, pony-themed
Not.
disposable wash gloves have popped up for all your cleaning needs. I wonder if they're selling that along with the peach wipes.
I hope so.
Maybe the peach wipes are that the wash gloves are made out of the peach wipes.
Oh god.
What has science wrought?
And lastly, in convention news, M.A. Larson has been added to the roster of Equestria LA, joining its expanded pool of writers attending the November con. Organizers also announced the opening of one-day registration, which began as of October 2nd, which was, I
Yes.
want to say yesterday, but since we're doing this in the
Tuesday.
future, yes, it was 3 days ago. 3 days from the when this is posted. And I believe that's all the quick hits we have left to cover.
Good job,
And
Mr. Funky.
and I made it
Yay,
through that with
funky.
only 10 screw ups and only 2 awkward silences, which is a new record for me. So we're going to move on to our discussion segment, and to start this off, the 4 string, you have something to discuss quite a bit, I imagine, since you attended Canterlot Gardens this past weekend.
No, I didn't.
You didn't? Or was
Maybe you didn't.
oh, it was Art, but he's not here, so I guess we have to cut this podcast short.
Yeah, I guess we're done. Yeah. No, I was. Yeah, we only got one discussion topic this week. No interview this week because of Canterlot Gardens, and we decided let's do something on this because last time we talked about a convention, it took us quite a bit. I don't think it's going to take as long.
Sorry.
It's going to take. I don't think it's going to take us as long this time. But yeah, I will preface by saying yes, I did go to Canterlot Gardens this past weekend, and but I do want to make a disclaimer here. I didn't get to do a whole lot, and that's mainly because I was working during the con in terms of doing a different story, which ended up getting posted over the weekend, and so I was doing stuff toward that. And as a result, I didn't really get to do all kinds of things I really necessarily wanted to do because a lot of times I was working. So I do want
And
to preface it by saying that although I would have ideally liked to, have seen more things, I didn't get to see everything. Although I did get to see a lot of stuff played back because of a free radio was there and did record most of the main panels. So, if not all of them, so I did get to see a lot in the end. But
when you weren't working, you were passed out in your hotel room.
Well, actually, yes. As a matter of fact, because on Friday, I was actually very, very sick, and ended
Oh,
up, I had to do my story on Friday, and then after I finished it, I was basically just like, I'm going to pass out now because I'm just not feeling good. And I made the bad mistake of I hadn't eaten all day, so my stomach was messed up anyway. Plus, I hadn't eaten. I smoked a cigarette outside, and then it really messed up my stomach. I almost threw up. And then, yeah, so it was bad. But I mean, I survived.
So you
But
had a pretty bad case of the feather flu.
we'll go with that. Yeah,
Or pony pox.
yeah. But yeah. So I
Whatever.
was at Canterlot Gardens this weekend. It was held in Strongsville, Ohio. For those of you who don't know where it was, that's a little about 10 miles south of Cleveland, I think, maybe a little more than that. But it's very close to Cleveland,
How
and
far was it from you?
it took me about 3 hours to get there, if I recall correctly. Yeah, about three hours.
More than just say 3 minutes to get there.
I wish that'd be wonderful. No,
I live in the where they're holding it.
I live in the Holiday Inn. That'd be awesome. Uh, so yeah, it did take about 3 hours. I headed up on Thursday night. The con went from Friday to Sunday, but I got a hotel room that Thursday night, so I decided to go up there. I picked up two guys, one of which his name is Zane. He's known as Z Sabotage on the Ohio Bronies forums, and then his friend Austin, who I'd never met before this. And we headed up there and um, met up with a guy named Tony, who was also rooming with us, who was a part of the security staff, and checked into our hotel, which is the Days Inn, in Middleburg Heights. It's about 5 minutes north, actually, of the convention, because the con hotel was totally sold out, as was the hotel next to it, which was a Super 8. So pretty much if you wanted to get any sort of hotel, you had to kind of drive a little ways, which ended up working out okay because the hotel we stayed at ended up only being like $47 a night. So splitting that in between everybody, because we ended up having two other guys that joined us for the Friday and Saturday night, ended up only costing us like $32 total. So that was really wonderful. But
Wow,
yeah, it was really
you're
nice.
lucky.
So all in all,
Cheapest place I could find near Everfree was like $180 a night.
yeah, we got really, really, really lucky with that. But yeah, so Thursday night we got up there, tried to get my badge. Actually, so did the other people with me, and turns out the press badges weren't ready yet. So we ended up leaving and coming back, and they still weren't ready. This was 10 o'clock at night. So, that was always nice. But yeah, so I don't necessarily want to do this in like a whole we started here and ended here. But I will say that all in all, the con was good. Um, this is coming from someone who doesn't really like conventions very much. I just don't do them. I don't know why. I just not a big thing. Like the other one I went to, which is TrotCon, I was staff on that, so I had something to do. This one, was just like whatever. I had work to do, but that was about it. But all in all, it was a good con. But that being said, it did definitely have some things that a lot of people found kinda iffy. I think the main thing was overcrowding. There was a lot of issues. Maybe you guys saw this on Twitter if you were following along throughout the week. There was a lot of issues with overcrowding in the sense that the hotel or in the space was probably not big enough for 2,000 people. Basically, that was their total attendance cap. They stopped selling stuff after that, and they did sell out. So there was definitely an issue with overcrowding because the hotel was a little too small for as many people that were there. And I think, apparently this con, I was talking to my photographer for the story that I did, and she said that she's been to a couple conventions there, horror conventions, as a matter of fact, and, they can usually fit quite a few people in there. The problem with this, I think, and this is another thing a lot of people had a problem with, was that there was quite a lack of things to do. There was only one panel room, and this only had, panels going throughout the day, but that was it. Then it had two autograph rooms, and the autograph rooms had lines that were stretching all around the hallways pretty much the whole time that you had to also kind of get around. There was the gaming room, which I only went into once, but that was kind of toward the back, and then it always had like kind of a line. And then the artist alley, which again also had a line because there were so many people there that they didn't want to put everybody in there at once. This is the same with the panel room when people were waiting. I think this had about a capacity of about 8,000, or not 8,000, 800 to 1,000 people. Yeah, 800 to 1,000 people mainly, which obviously is not the entire convention. So
there were like more lines than like graph paper, basically.
There were quite a few lines, and the problem was this, basically. If you're not in any of those rooms, where do you go? Because there weren't really any common places where anybody could go to like hang out or whatever, because there was only so much space right outside the main panel room, which was right in front of the check-in counter for the hotel itself. And then over kind of nearby the autograph area was a lounge that was pretty much always packed. Didn't have a lot of room there. And you could go outside also. But other than that, pretty much all you had were the halls of the hotel. And yet, people were continuously yelled at by the security and like con staff for being a fire hazard, for standing out. It's like, well, where else are people supposed to go? So I'm sorry that I'm starting this out kind of negative, but this is something I think that the con staff does understand. I will start by saying that. As far as I understand, they do definitely know that that was an issue. And if they don't, and they think they can do this again next year in the exact same place, I don't even know how to respond to that, because the only way they could do that is if they actually decrease the amount of people there. And chances are they probably want to increase the amount of people there. They said they want to keep it in the Cleveland area, and there are other places, from what I understand, that you can go to. So I will say that chances are we'll be looking at a venue change for Canterlot Gardens come next year, because, while, again, and I'll probably keep saying this, while this was a good con, one of the biggest issues was overcrowding. There was not much space. When I was walking around with my photographer getting pictures, it was always a problem, trying to actually get people to be like, hey, can we stop you? Mainly because how do we stop them? We're trying to move, and you're going to get in someone's way if you just stop long enough.
Just throw your camera at them.
Yeah. So that was definitely an issue. But another issue being that, again, I'm starting off with the negativity here first, I guess. There wasn't enough to do. There were only panels in the one room, and that was it. If you went to, say, TrotCon, for instance, there were actually 3 different panel rooms. You had the main panel room, and then you had 2 other smaller ones. And Nemesis, if I recall correctly, Everfree Northwest had multiple panels going on at once. Is that correct?
Let me think. Yeah, they had the main panel room at the top, and they had another 2 in that hotel, and I think then they had 1 more over in the other hotel.
That's what I thought. Okay. So, obviously, most conventions have multiple things going on. Even BronyCon. Even though, if you listen to some of the stuff from BronyCon this last time, you can hear other cons going on, in the background, or not other cons, other panels going on in the background.
And there were the BronyCon and the Star Trek con at the same time.
There's other cons in the same building, yeah. You can hear other panels going on in the background, kind of annoying, but the point is there are still other things going on. With Canterlot Gardens, pretty much there was only one panel room, and there was only one panel going on at a time. Now that's good if you don't want to have to choose, but at the same time, again, if you're not interested in whatever's going on right then and there, then
you're out of luck.
You're out of luck, because what else is there to do? Because the artist alley was also very small, and you can only go through there so many times before it's like, okay, I've seen everything there is to see. Plus, you have to wait in a line to get in most of the time, because they're only letting so many people in, which is a very good idea, although there was still quite a bit of crowding in there anyway, mainly in front of the most popular booths, which is to say We Love Fine, Enterplay, because everybody got a free card just by attending the convention from Enterplay, which is awesome, but that means there's going to be a lot of bottleneck there. Also, Pixel Kitties, Toxic Mario, Citrus 360, would offer food, all their tables were almost always just full of people. So that doesn't help either. So, there's only so much programming, and it's like, okay, well, if you don't want to do this, what else do you do? That's what seems to be good about a lot of these other cons, is that if you don't want to, see the hot diggity demon, well, you can go do this, you can go do that, and it's like, it works. Here, pretty much the only other alternative you had were either go into the artist alley, which by Sunday, if you probably already had, it's like, well, why go back in there again? You can go wait in autograph lines, which you had to pay $10 or $20 to get autographs anyway, per person, per signature. So, you may not have been able to do that. You could go into the gaming room, which was almost always full of people. You could stand around, and you're probably going to be yelled at for being a fire hazard. You could stand outside, where it was kind of getting cold the last couple days. Or you can go up into the hotel, if you have a hotel room or know people you can hang out with in the hotel. Which, I talked to a lot of people who did go that had hotel rooms there, and that was very good for them. They said, well, if I didn't want to be downstairs, rather than being a fire hazard the whole time or so we were called, we could go upstairs, go back into our room, and that was that.
Just wait it out.
Just hang out with people, drink, whatever, it was cool. So that was definitely a big issue. And I think this is something that's not just from me here. This is something that's been repeated by quite a few people. That as I've been reading about the con and what other people had to say about it. So I think those are the main two issues I can think of off the top of my head right now. Of course, I'll probably think of some more later. But those are the main two issues, I think, about the con that really kind of took away from it, that made it not as good as it probably could have been. Which is, again, the crowding and the lack of programming. There could have been a whole lot more. But
the Canterlot Gardens should have been called Fire Hazard Con.
Well, and that's funny because most cons, have the fire problem, like BronyCon having the fire there and the Fire Nation attack. There was actually no fires at the con, although after the con, me and a couple other guys were across the highway at the Strongsville Mall, and the fire alarm went off. So we're like, oh god, the Fire Nation missed by a little bit, but here we are. But anyway, Nemesis, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to... You said there was about 2,000 people there?
Correct. That's what they said. That's what they said.
And this is in one hotel?
Correct. This was in one hotel, a Holiday Inn, which...
How big was it?
Not very big.
That surprises me, because I'm honestly surprised they tried to pull that off. They pulled that off because it's like Everfree was 1,600 people or so, and they decided to expand to a second hotel.
Yeah,
and it's like it was a Holiday Inn and a Marriott, and it's like
to keep
that was having overcrowding issues.
Now,
like,
with both of those, did either of them have any sort of like convention center style like meeting rooms and such?
Well, yeah, the Holiday Inn had the 12th floor, but.
See,
and then they had two smaller ones at the bottom, and that's about it.
Yeah, well,
there's no, if you weren't in there's certain places though that if you weren't interested in anything at that point, you really had nowhere to go.
Right. Yeah, that sounds a lot like this. Yeah, I mean, this did have on the first floor. This is where the con took place. It had an extension of like lots of different rooms that you could go into. Obviously, like I said, the main room could hold probably about 1,000 people or so, maybe 800, somewhere in that range. So, I mean, it definitely is a hotel that does host cons and can do it. I just don't know if... No, I do know. I know it's not the type of con that can host one of this size. Heck, I don't even know if it could have hosted something like TrotCon or Midwestria that were less people. But... even then, it would have still been pretty crowded. And you need to have... The thing is about conventions, you got to have things for people to do. In a lot of cases, you really didn't. So if you were not staying in the hotel and you couldn't go back up to your room or something, you were kind of SOL here, because what else are you going to do? So I took a lot of smoke breaks during this when I wasn't actually working, which I will say I was working quite a bit, especially on Friday. I had a lot to do, and then Saturday and Sunday I was going around doing a lot of interviews. So both days, I had a lot to do. So this didn't really affect me as much as it probably affected other people. But I know there were a lot of people who were kind of God, this is really bad in terms of like, planning, in terms of, where
Right.
can people go? It just the hotel was just not big enough. They need to get, well, or the convention space rather was not big enough, and they definitely do, like the hotel itself. I'd say this was a pretty good amount of. I don't know how many people could have stayed there, but it was a pretty sizable hotel. So it's not so much the hotel as it is the convention space that
Exactly.
really ended up being a big issue. Like I feel like this could have been a lot better if it was at something more like an Embassy Suites that had like a really sizable convention center add-on, because then you've also, if you've got the convention area, and then you also have something like that. That again, the Embassy Suites has that giant, public area in the middle, so you can kind of go there and like chill and whatever. And I think I'm pretty sure there's been a lot of furry cons that have been at places like that before, and that, I think that would work. But anyway, like I said, there was still a lot of really cool stuff going on, and I think the biggest thing that a lot of people remember. Three things. Number one being the Andrew W.K. panel. Number two being the voice actor panel. Number three being the script reading, which included a lot of voice actors. Now, Canterlot Gardens is very interesting in that, yes, it's a PonyCon, but it didn't just have pony-related guests. Andrew W.K. being one of them, but even people like John DiMaggio, Gray Delisle, Jennifer Hale, DC Douglas, etc., etc. They even had a musician, not musician, sorry, a magician named Brian Brushwood who came and did a magic show. None of these people have anything to do with the show, and that's going to be a cool thing for some people, and other people are going to be like, well, why? Does maybe a lack of identity here? But it did make for some really cool things in terms of the script reading panel, which I'll talk about first here because it had only one actual pony voice actor, and I'm sure we can all guess who that was because she does so many voices.
John
That
DiMaggio.
You're right. That's John. Yeah, no, no. Tara Strong was part of it. She was joined or flanked, if you will, by John DiMaggio.
I see what you did
Yeah,
there.
no. Jennifer Hale, Greta Lyle, DC Douglas, and Quentin Flynn. So that basically meant that you got all kinds of different voices that you wouldn't necessarily hear. Like otherwise, if they just only brought the show voice actors, it could have been a definitely different tune because you may not have gotten some of the really interesting voices, and they would have been mainly girls also. And although Peter New and Lee Tokar and Andrew Francis were there, so I guess that wouldn't necessarily have been. But this way, you got people like Bender and Jake the Dog and Wesker and Quentin Flynn does a lot of really good impressions. So you heard like you got like his Christopher Walken and Paul McCartney and stuff like that. So you got that, and that was really cool. And there was also a really cool instance where Tara was doing her Timmy Turner, and Gray was doing her Vicky the babysitter. So you got like two different characters from that, and Tara did her Baby Dill, which was really annoying as all get out. But
Everyone just
so
left.
so you got a very good array of voice actors, and there's already been a video out there of someone took because at one point John DiMaggio was playing Bender, playing Trixie, because the thing they did obviously was Ghostbusters. I say obviously because that's the only episode where Trixie's in to date. But at that point, a lot of people were really laughing. Everybody loved it. So at this point, now people have made a video where they put his voice to like scenes from the movie, and it's or of the episode rather, and it's very, very, very amusing.
From the unreleased movie.
Of the movie, yeah, the
What?
Trixie's in it, yeah. But so I very much encourage people to check that out. But yeah, that was a very interesting thing. Also, the voice actor panel included a lot of voice actors from the show. Let's see if I can remember them all off the top of my head here. We had Tara Strong, Andrea Lindman, Kathy Westluck, Andrew Francis, Peter New, Lee Tokar. Nicole Oliver had to cancel last minute, so she couldn't be there. Britt McKillop was there for that was the first ever con she'd been to, so that was pretty cool. And Michelle Krieber, and I believe that is it. But either way, you have people coming to the voice actor panel definitely got their good dose of pony voices and the like. That was pretty cool. And as you guys have probably heard by now, and anybody else out there listening has probably heard by now, Tara did come in with a Twilight cosplay. So that definitely made a lot of people really excited. And in fact, actually, during the script reading, she was actually in the audience. And then she pops up, and everybody's like, ah! Of course, everybody kind of knew it was her because she was surrounded by security. So who else would be surrounded by security? But still. And so that was very interesting. And then, of course, the Andrew W.K. panel, which you can find that panel online. You can also find it in a exceptionally well-written story on RollingStone.com. I don't know. I didn't meet the guy who wrote that, but I mean, he seems like a really cool guy.
Not really well.
So if you want,
No, he seems like kind of a jerk.
he might be. I don't know. I guess the beans are spilled here. I wrote that, and also interviewed him afterwards. He's a really cool guy. Anyway, yeah, we even did. Okay, I'm going to go off topic here, but we did I did the interview with him, and afterwards we did like a photo shoot with him, and he was like jumping on the bed of the hotel, and it was really awesome. And we're just like, you are the best dude ever, because he's just like, he's a true showman. When you want, like, okay, we need some pictures from you, and he's like, pointing at the camera and like holding it in, and like just like making all these faces, and I'm like, you are fantastic. But anyway, he did have a panel, and it was a very cool panel, I think, and it definitely gave a lot of people some really cool insight into his dealings with the show, which he admitted straight off were very limited. But he was very interested in learning, and I think he did learn quite a bit from the people there, because there were quite a few questions. His panel, like his speech itself, lasted probably about 15-20 minutes tops, and then the rest was question and answers. And so you got to hear a lot of cool stuff from him about, ponies, music, Destroy, Build, Destroy, a lot of really interesting stuff. And all in all, I think he came out, I mean, I shouldn't even say I think, he told me that he came out like, really excited and really happy. He really, really enjoyed it. And he came out thinking, he's like, yeah, they're really tolerable. They'll take any outsider in, and like, it's not like totally weird. And I was sitting there thinking, they only did that because you're Andrew W.K. But, whatever. But because usually people are, a lot of times pony fans are a little hostile towards outsiders. Let's be real here. So,
No.
whatever. Not at all. He also shot a party cannon at one point, so that was pretty cool. Because Pinkie Pie. And
You were wounded.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a very, very interesting panel, and I encourage anybody out there listening to definitely check those out on YouTube. Those are all 3 on YouTube. All have very good sound quality and pretty decent video. So definitely check it out. But yeah, other than that with the con, it's always saying, hey, 4-string drinks a lot, right? Well, the most I actually drank all weekend was Thursday night before the con even began, because after we finally got our badges, we went back to my room and I got some liquor, some beer. I had a lot of beer. I still had a lot left over actually, and we had a little party in there. And our other roommate showed up, so there was 4 of us, and then there was 2 guys from the Ohio Bronies group that showed up, and then we put it out on the Canterlot Gardens forum. We're like, hey, everybody show up, and it's funny because we actually, in order to gain entrance into our room party thing, you had to take a shot of Everclear, which for those who don't know what Everclear is, it's basically grain alcohol, and it comes in 2 levels. It comes in the highly alcoholic level and the holy crap, you're going to die if you drink the whole thing alcoholic level. It's 190 proof, which basically means it's basically 95% alcohol, if I recall correctly. And there's no taste to it. It's just basically straight alcohol. It burns like nothing has ever burned in my life when it goes down in your throat. Like, amazing. But we had one of our roommate Tony come in, and he drank it like just a half a shot of it. It wasn't even a whole thing, and he was like, "Oh my god, this is terrible." And a couple minutes later, he throws up outside our room, which this is a hotel that's like a outdoor entrance room, so to the room, so this wasn't out on the carpet or anything. But anyway, 2 guys actually come up later, and they're like, yeah, we knew this was the right room because there was already puke outside, and we're like, yeah. But we also had I had two of my prints I got at TrotCon hanging on the window in case anybody was like, hey. Originally we were gonna put it outside on the door, but then I'm like, someone's probably gonna steal it. But yeah, so that was a thing. Um, so we ended up drinking quite a bit, and then I had to get up in the morning to meet my photographer for the story, like at 8 o'clock in the morning, because she was taking a red-eye flight from LA. So she was gonna be getting there in like 8 o'clock. So I'm like, yeah, she'll probably be there at a decent hour. So we didn't drink too late, even though my roommates were staying up talking till like 5 o'clock. I'm like, oh my god, guys! But we watched that new Daniel Tosh show, Brickleberry, which is absolutely horrible. Just saying, I'm a hater, but then on Friday, obviously, I was very busy. I had a lot to do the whole day in terms of getting stuff, doing stuff at the con, doing my interviews, this and that. Plus, I was sick, so I didn't get to do a whole lot on Friday. But it was really cool coming back later on in the day because I had to take my roommates back in because they had a gala that night. And that wasn't really, you're supposed to dress up and stuff. One of the things a lot of people said about the gala they didn't like was that it wasn't really much of a gala. It was more just like a rock concert. In that Michelle Creeber and Mando Pony performed, and then Britt McKillop's band, I think One More Girl is the name of it, performed, and it's with her sister. And that's pretty much all it was. It also started very late, so a lot of people were very upset about that. I will say, though, it was very cool seeing Hot Diggity Demon in a suit, because I definitely never seen that before. In fact, I've never seen him really get into the whole pony thing. Usually, it seems like he's very much like a Trotcon, at least. He was very... I didn't see him around at many things, but I think it's also because he was sick, so that doesn't help. But, so that was very funny. It was funny seeing all the people, dressed up and stuff. But I also got to meet up with Cal Payne from Equestria Daily really quick because he had some beer for me. So I went and got some beer from him, and that was nice. And then I kind of skedaddled out of there to finish my story. But then Saturday, Andrew W.K actually came back, which is really cool, and signed some autographs. It actually created a huge bottleneck in the line because not only did he show up unannounced to do stuff in the kind of sat down in the middle of the room and just kind of was like, hey, come over and talk to me. Tara Strong decided to say that, okay, everybody who paid for a voucher for me is going to get something signed, which is admirable, although it did end up making a line that stretched forever long, and I'm told by some people who were working the con security almost got the con shut down because hotel staff was like, this line is too long. So there's that. But yeah, it was pretty cool. But at the same time, it did create a line that was forever long. So that's a thing. But the voice actor panel was that day. Then you had the script reading, and then that night they had a Brony musician showcase. And the previous night they had a DJ Power Hour with a couple of the DJs, more electronics minded people. This night they had some stuff they had Cyril, who we feature one of his songs, I think the first week actually of the podcast, more of a rock styled song. And I'm trying to think if we actually had anybody else perform that we have featured before. I don't think so. But there was a lot of really interesting stuff there. And by interesting, I mean there was a lot of stuff that was very good, and there was a lot of stuff I was definitely not a fan of. And I'm not going to say who it was, but I will say here, and this is something that wasn't necessarily indicative of only one person, but I saw this with a lot of things. The thing about live music, especially instrumental stuff, not just, instrument in voice, not just electronic or rapping or whatever. The thing about when you're playing instruments like drums, guitar, with this fandom, a lot of times, with the exception of let's say for instance the Beatle Bronies, a lot of these people are not in the same area and therefore cannot practice together. And so this is a lot of times the first times they're really getting a chance to play together. Maybe they've played together at cons. The point is they don't get to practice together a lot. And I understand that. However, I also think that you want to present the best possible product to a live audience. And a lot of times, a lot of musicians weren't really doing that. There was a lot of screw-ups, like in terms of like just people not on tempo. There was a lot of instances where there were drummers who were playing that didn't need to be there because they had like a drum machine underneath anyway that was playing underneath keyboards. There's a lot of instances where I'm like, what is this person? Why is this person up here? Because they were just letting like other people play for them, and they were just kind of yelling at every once in a while, like, yeah. It was weird. It was really weird. I just didn't get it. I was just like, okay, I dig Brony music in a lot of cases. This just isn't very good. And I know not all it's like that. I know not all of them is like that, so this is not a thing I'm saying about the entire fandom as a whole. But I would have liked a little more effort, I guess. And it came across to me that people kind of hadn't been practicing basically till they got on that stage. And if that wasn't the case, well, that's what it sounded like. So I may come under fire by saying that. The 5 people that listen to this are going to be like, hey, stop it. Just stop it. And to that I say, you know what? Just impress me. I want to be impressed. With music, I'm the kind of person that I want to go to like a show, and I want to actually feel something. And I don't want to be listening to your song just for the sake of listening to your song just because I've heard it on the internet and it's like, oh, hey, it's that song. I want to hear it, and I want it to sound good, and I want it to actually elicit some sort of like emotion within me. You know, that's what I think music should do, and I just didn't get that a lot. So, you know, I've championed the Brony music fandom before. You know, I definitely have, even when people have said, you know, there's been some naysayers, if you will. And I was just like, you know what? No, this is actually pretty cool. But, you know, I was watching this, and I kept telling my photographer, I'm like, this sounds a lot better when it's recorded, trust me. Because I was almost embarrassed. I'm like, God, this is just not sounding good at all. And sure enough, in one instance, one of the people who was not very good, a lot of people left during it. So I was like, yeah, I'm not the only one. But, so you have that going on. And that Saturday night, I actually drank a little bit more in the hotel, and that was fun. Then on Sunday, I got up late. I missed Hot Diggity Damon's panel. I wish I hadn't, but I already saw it at TrotCon, so that wasn't hard. I hear he got a piercing during the con, like during the panel, which is something only he would do. And there's a lot of interesting stuff going on that day. At one point on Sunday, I talked to Peter New and got him to leave a voicemail for my girlfriend in Big Mac's voice, and he did it, and I was really excited. I was like, "Thank you, sir. You're fantastic." But again, a lot of the stuff I was doing the whole con was mainly taking stuff from my story and trying to do another story too. I tried to get approved this story on Brony musicians, which ended up not getting approved, not because they didn't like it, but because they didn't have the money to pay me. Which I was like, I could totally do this for free, and they're like, no, we don't really believe in doing that. We want to pay you. So
just pay me
I actually
in beer.
exactly. Pay me in pumpkin beer. I'll do it. So I actually have an interview with Silvahound on my recorder. I was like, okay, just in case, because I was standing over there with him, Bajati, and then Shane Algorithm actually came over after that. So it was like those four kind of crowded around me and my photographer in the elevator bank area, because I think everybody was just kind of figuring out who we were slowly. So we talked to Silva and Bajati mostly for a while there, and I got to talk to Bajati also about Nemesis and how they all have met before and stuff, and that was pretty funny.
Yay!
Because he was like, "Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, I saw." Because he was telling the story about how he saw you on the highway, saw the plush or whatever it was out on the dashboard. He's like, oh my god, but very cool guy by the way. And he actually had his 21st birthday during the con. So, but Jody, I hope you had a really good day. You sound like you did. So.
So he just mentions the DeLorean on I-5 when he was talking to you, and then you were able to say, hey, I know him.
Yeah, right.
Crazy.
But yeah, so also speaking of like musicians drinking, I know Tarby was really, really drunk on I think Friday or Saturday. I forget which day it was. It was Saturday, which is pretty funny. You know, I was tweeting at him like, "No, it's okay." He's like, "No, it's not." I'm so ashamed of my, you know. He's like, "Guys, I think I'm still drunk. I just woke up." It's pretty funny. But anyway, I mean, I don't really have much else to say about this con. I mean, like, even though the artist alley was small, there was very good selection there. And of course, we love Fine Bean. That was very cool and had a lot of really cool shirts. Although most of them were male shirts, and I gotta say, people give the Brony fandom, flack for being a mainly male-dominated world, but there were a lot of girls there, which was
Oh yeah.
which is always nice. Which makes you feel better. You're just like, okay, cool. And a lot of them are cosplaying, and there's a lot of really cool cosplays here. I also want to point out the best one I think being a girl who did a cosplay of Pinkie Pie when I forget the context. I think it's like when she's got she's like got the flippers and the hat and like the thing you blow on to make the party noise. I forget what those are called.
Oh, from that Dragon Shy episode.
Yeah. Basically, it's just her dressed up
okay.
like that. That was
when it's her
really
turn to
cool.
go wake the dragon or something like that.
Yeah, that was really cool. And there's a lot of other cool pictures you can find online if you want to.
When you said the best cosplay on that, you should have said Tara Strong's.
No,
Oh, yeah.
hers wasn't the best. It was very good though. Like especially for her first time doing it. Like I like that it was very good. Especially her hair, like she did that one very well. There are some people here who I've seen a lot at like 2 cons now, and I know other cons who are just like professionals. In fact, there's this one guy who I vaguely know. I met him at a season finale party one time, who did a Shining Armor cosplay that Andrew Francis came up to him and said that's the best Shining Armor cosplay I've ever seen. And sure, it was actually very, very good. But there were a lot of really cool cosplay stuff going on throughout the week. Cosplay event. There was actually a guy I know from TrotCon who I've also met up with outside of cons, who dressed up as a Slenderman, but it was like a Slender Pony type thing, I think, because of the ears. Unless Slenderman always looks like that, I don't think he does. Had like kind of ears that were kind of like cat ear type things, but so that was kind of funny. And also there's a guy I also know from that same group. He goes by Sir Pinky, and he has his own party cannon that he carries around. So that's always fun. And there were also a lot of young children there who were also cosplaying and got in a couple pictures, and that was pretty cool, seeing them there and everything. But I've rambled about this for a while. All in all, again, it was a very good con. But I definitely think they have a lot of things to worry on. I can talk. Worry about.
Hey, I can talk too.
They have a lot of things they can work on in terms of overcrowding. Kind of working on that. I think mainly it's just going to help if they get a different con. Or not a different con. I can't talk all of a sudden. A different. As long as they get. Yeah, exactly. As long as they get a different venue, I think that's definitely going to alleviate that, as long as it's obviously a bigger area. And then beyond that, working on getting more stuff happening. There were also a lot of issues with some staff being kind of in over their heads. And, I'm not going to mention who they were, out of respect here, but I'm sure it's being dealt with. I also should mention, if you don't already know about the new meme that's been born from it, the con shirts, the security shirts, ended up coming in with a typo. So it read security, and they had already they knew about this. They had already been reprinting new ones. They were coming in on Friday. I guess the voice actors thought it was hilarious and were like, "No, you guys should wear this anyway." So about half the shirts at the con for security actually said security, the other one said security. That was pretty amusing, I gotta say. But that's something also to work on. Like, don't spell things wrong on your shirts, please. But, beyond that, there were a lot of voice actors. There were a lot of people from the show there. And that's something I think is really cool, and I think that's something that they definitely should, continue to try to do. And it's interesting also because you kind of got this feeling at this con that everybody's like almost getting a little burnt out from cons. I think it's because we haven't had anything new from the fandom to really keep us going for a while. We've had these cons, that's been nice, but we finally have the new episodes coming up now. So we can finally be like, okay, now we have new things because a lot of these cosplays, for instance, we've been seeing for a while there because we haven't had any new cosplays, because we haven't had any new episodes, we haven't any new songs, new this or that. so that's really exciting. I'm really excited to see where this con goes and where the other cons that have already happened this year. And I think the main one that's left is Equestria LA in November. It's really going to be really interesting where these cons go next year, because they'll have new things to talk about, new things to see, new things to do, and obviously a lot of them are going to learn from their mistakes this year, or so we hope. Sounds like, as Nemesis said, Free Northwest is already, getting ready to change things.
Yes.
I'm hoping Canterlot Gardens is going to. All they've really said so far is, we hear your concerns, thank you. So I don't really know how they're changing things, but I'm sure they will. But all in all, good con, could be better, but I know a lot of people are very happy about it. So I will say that there weren't a lot of people who were pissed. There were a lot of people who didn't like some things, who were frustrated by some things, but that didn't necessarily take away from their enjoyment as a whole. So I'd say that's about my spiel about Canterlot Gardens, unless you guys have any more questions.
No, I think you've covered just about everything that I was thinking about.
Yeah, I'm sure I will think of more things later, but alas. So, yeah, I also, to anybody listening out there who was at the con, if you saw a guy I was always wearing my green crackle beanie. I'm kind of tall, I had a beard, and I generally dress nicely, or I like to think I do. My favorite dress being, I had a blue kind of flannelish shirt and my cerulean colored jeans on Saturday. That was my favorite outfit I've ever gotten. I bought it that day because I went for Brew 21 because I was meeting up with a friend, and I ended up going to the Brew 21. They had like a huge sale. I'm just like, okay. So if you ever saw a guy that kind of looked like that, was wearing a lot of flannel and had that hat on, that was me. Hello there. I love you. It was also really cool to meet or at least see a lot of people who were big in the fandom, because this definitely brought out a lot of people. And I'm hoping one day I'll actually be able to meet them a little bit, like more than in passing, if at all. Because we got to get the name of the Pony 411 podcast out there, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
So, okay, that's it.
Well,
and because of that, this week, because of having that, again, I didn't do an interview this week. So, but look for more next week. We'll have something. I don't know what, but if you have any ideas, throw them our way. Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe Forster will be able to interview that person that wrote that article he was talking about.
I know. I should go find him. I should email. I should email that guy from Rolling Stone and be like, "Hey, dude, what's up? What do you think of ponies?" And he'll be like, "Oh my God, shut up." Anyway, fan content, is that what we're going to next? Okay.
Yes. The fan content of the podcast is up next, and we're going to start off with the artworks of the week, and we're going to highlight a couple of pieces that I picked and talk about them for the week. To start off, the first one I want to start off with is partly, I want to say, maybe my favorite out of the week, but that's saying a lot because I really like all of them, all the ones that we have right now. And the first one that we're going to cover or talk about briefly is My Punky Pony Twilight Sparkle by Fussbot. And it's a side shot of Twilight Sparkle, the humanized Twilight Sparkle, in fact. But the thing that I liked about this is it's done. Twilight is dressed up in a really punk style attire with also with a matching hairstyle. It's hard to describe the hair, but the back of the front half of her hair is as normal, as you would expect from her show, but the back is shaved with a kind of mohawk going up over it, and then with the kind of tattoo, or I don't know how that would work on a shaved head, but I know people have done it, but I'm assuming it's a tattoo of her cutie mark on the side of her head. And with this, she has this really, again, punk outfit attire on. She has a couple of piercings on her lip and everything, and it's part of a series that the artist did. Again, the artist is a Fussbot, and they did the entire cast, or not the entire cast, but the main six, similarly with kind of punk outfits, and they're all really good. But And I think my second favorite is probably Fluttershy's because it kind of had like an '80s glam hairband going on. But again, I guess I'm probably just biased and I just enjoy Twilight Sparkles more. And
Mhm.
but but yeah, definitely, I really enjoyed this one a lot, and it's got a really like the style and just like the simple details and coloring and shading and everything to go along with it. The second one is from an artist that we covered before. In fact, I think it was the first artist that we covered in the first podcast, TX
That's
Legionnaire
correct.
or Texas Legionnaire, however you want to go with it. And the the piece is called Live 2D, and it's a shot with Lyra, and it's following the gimmick or whatever you want to call it that he has, as we again explained in the podcast, that he has a lot of his drawings in which his I don't think it's a self insert, but like his male character that's in there interacting with ponies, but kind of not wanting to be there. And in this one, it's kind of shown that again, where it's a back shot of Lyra apparently talking to him or communicating with him through a I want to say like some kind of live streaming, not live streaming device. I'm trying to think of the word here. Like the live call, the video call. There we go, like a video call device, and it's the and then she's smiling at him and touching the screen while he's just kind of looking down to where he's touching, and he just looks kind of uneasy about it. And again, we covered this. I just enjoy it just because the contrasting between just the cute, adorable style and like the coloring and everything with Lyra and like and the ponies that he usually draws, and then just like the kind of upset and then worried human character that's in there that goes along with them. And so again, like very nice. Again, like he I've been recently I've been messing around with the kind of brushes that he uses in a lot of these drawings that are kind of binary brush, and again that he does it really well in here, and it looks like he has a lot of fun with this, and he's been doing a lot more recently, so that's always good. And this is one of the things that he's recently done. And next one's Hooves and Popcorn by, it's gonna be interesting to pronounce in this name, Me Dash EAU. I have no idea how to say that, Miayu or what have you, but again, it's another Lyra picture, and that's kind of the theme here. Twilight and Lyra are the two subjects for this one. I totally didn't plan it out, but that's the parent theme for this one. Again, it's another kind of back shot of Lyra, but it's her sitting down on the ground, and she's eating popcorn with her hooves, and it's just I think the one thing that kind of stood out to me about this one is just the way it's colored, because it's got a really nice coloring style, and I just really enjoy the palette because it has a really nice use of yellows along with her primary color scheme, which is that kind of sea foam green kind of color. I'm not sure what the exact kind of color it is, but it works really well with that. It's really nicely rendered. Just that kind of face she has as she's looking back while she's eating her popcorn is just really well drawn and everything. And I just love the kind of smooth painted lines on this, and again, like just really well painted, and I really enjoyed this one as well. And again, by me AU or me IU, that will be linked in the description, so you can have fun trying to pronounce that as well when you see it. And the last one is Twilight Esoteric Knowledge by. Give me a moment here. My computer's kind of acting up at the moment. By Giant Mosquito, and it is again like this really cool drawing. Kind of in this really well done painted style of reminiscent of the Cutie Mark Chronicles when Twilight or Philly Twilight kind of goes out of control with her magic abilities, and it's she has the glowing eyes. She's kind of floating, and she has a book on each side of her that are open, that kind of emulating wings, and then you can see in the back there's like a big glyph that kind of mimics how she looks, and with lots of really runic looking symbols, and it's just like it's just a really well done with the lighting and coloring and everything. And And this is one of those things that I kind of hated about not going. Like, like it would have been interesting to attend a BronyCon because this was a print at the past BronyCon in 2012 or summer 2012, and it would have been really interesting to get this piece. I definitely would have picked up this piece as a print if. And again, it's a really good picture with really great uses of lighting and coloring, and overall just like a really awesome picture to to go along or to kind of contrast like the kind of the other cute pictures along with this. And that's about like the artworks that I've chosen for the artworks of the week.
Twilight really wants you to read a book in that last one.
Yes.
Read a
Between
book.
the four, yeah.
Read a book. Read a book. Or I will murder you with my eyes. My God.
Yeah, between the four, the last one's my favorite. And I actually went to save it, and it said, "Oh, you already have this." I'm like, "Oh, okay then."
What has become your life?
Somewhere.
I really
Yeah,
dug
I think
all
you showed it to me a while back. So yeah.
I really dug on the Lyra this week. I like Lyra. She's a cool
Lyra.
pony. I think the fourth one's my favorite though. Very very cool. I'm not a fan of human ponies anyway. So I'm not, as I've said before. So
you're secretly
that
a
first
pony.
one that's true. So that first one I'm just kind of like whatever. But and also
Honestly.
because I have trouble getting behind the fact that Twilight would ever be any sort of punk. So,
Yes. I saw the shaved head and I was like, "Oh my god, what'd they do to you?"
I was like, yeah, that's never going to happen unless she was cosplaying or something. I don't know.
Alternate universe, who cares?
If there's anyone that would actually be a punk, it would be more, Rainbow Dash or like Pinkie Pie. Which I like the Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie. I like the Pinkie Pie one especially of the Punky Pony ones. Really amusing. All really cool art this week, and that hooves and popcorn one is really cute, so that's fun.
Yeah, Lyra and cute seems to go together pretty well when it comes to fan art of her, so that's no surprise. But moving on from that, we actually have a fanfic this week, believe it or not.
And Art's not even here. It's almost like someone new's taken over.
Yeah, so if you didn't notice last week, I took over Fanfiction because, well, Art just wasn't cutting it.
We had to make some cuts. Yes.
Exactly. But this
Cut
week I decided
kindness.
to pick one. I decided to pick a fanfic I've been following practically since it was first started. It's called Veil of Thoughts by Starwin. And you probably saw it on Equestria Daily. They started featuring it a little bit ago. And it recently just wrapped up. And it's basically a story where it starts off with, well, they find a pony and it looks familiar. She looks familiar. She looks kind of like Twilight, but she also looks kind of like Rainbow Dash. And it turns out it's both of them.
What is science?
They had a child.
Yeah, exactly. Or in this case, what has magic done?
Yeah.
And well, basically, when it starts off, and she wakes up and she can't even speak right. It's like two people are trying to fight over controlling the mouth, and she can't decide what to do. She keeps saying she wants to get out of the hospital. She wants to, because they put her in a hospital. They found her. It starts off with her in a hospital. And she's trying to get out of the hospital, but part of her also wants to stay in the hospital. And it seems like there's two ponies fighting. And well, that's exactly what's happening. As it turns out, as time goes on, we also get chapters that kind of go into their mind. It's like we see both of them kind of interacting with the other in an odd little way that doesn't totally make sense initially, but as time goes on, it'll explain it. And Celestia also comes by and she explains what Twilight did. Basically, she did the spell that it kind of combines two things together, but has never successfully been done on ponies before. And she also talks about the need to be separated, but the problem is when you try to separate using the spell, it usually doesn't end well for either thing. So now there's the worry that what will happen if they try to separate them. So the question is, should they even try to separate them? And as time, the story will kind of goes into why Twilight did this and everything, because everyone's confused because this is something that a responsible pony like her should not do or would never do. So you dives deep into it. It's actually. And I was one of those things that's like you're worried. It's like, oh, is this going to turn into shipping? And it doesn't. So if you're leery about that, don't worry about that sort of thing. There's no shipping in the story that I remember. Definitely not between Twilight and Dash or anything.
Or else you wouldn't be featuring it.
The thing is, since I saw it it's got Twilight as main character. I'm going to read it, and then I actually enjoyed it, even though Rainbow Dash is also the other main character. But I would recommend it to anyone who, it's a pretty. It kind of eventually you kind of predict how it's predictable how it's going to end, but I'd still recommend it. It's because it keeps this characters pretty close to this what's in the show. Probably a little too deep to actually be an episode plot, but sometimes it feels sometimes to do. It doesn't actually get too crazy mumbo jumbo stuff, but I enjoyed it all the way through. There was never a point where I was just like, it didn't feel like it dragged on too long. Didn't feel like it introduced weird things. It didn't belong, because there have been other stories I've read where all of a sudden everything just takes a left turn out of nowhere, and it's like, what just happened? But this story is pretty consistent within itself. Yeah.
I think the story would have been much more interesting if Twilight was fused with Scootaloo.
Oh, good heavens. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do to me?
Hey, come on. There's potential there. I think Kevin would agree with me.
Of course. I haven't read this. I haven't been able to read the entire story yet. It's pretty long. Not super long, but it is 14 chapters or whatever.
14 chapters, and they are 2,000 to 4,000.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not super long, but it is a decent size. But I will continue to plug. I mean, I will go with what Nemesis says here. It does look like a very good story. I'm very interested. I think that the whole idea behind it's really cool. So it sounds like something that we might see in a future episode. I was thinking more along the lines of perhaps like some sort of body switch thing, for this whole like body combination type thing. Whatever, that's maybe a thing too. You never know. But it's definitely a play on. You don't see that much. That's not really usually a thing. So that's pretty cool. And it's definitely one of the many things I'm gonna check out here soon, because there's a lot of fanfics out there I really need to check out. This past weekend actually definitely got me thinking about it, because there's a lot of like references to things, and a lot of fanfic writers who were there that were talking about their fanfics. I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. So I'll get there eventually. But this is definitely one on my list. I have it bookmarked, so you should read it like me, and we can come back next week and we can have a book club about it or something. I don't know.
Share notes.
Oh, one last thing. It's just the whole pony combination thing has been explored a little bit in fan art. Like I saw one that like took the 3 different ponies of the main 6 and combined them into an alicorn or something. But it's never been done in fan fiction, because like, how would that work and stuff? There's probably been stories out there, but most people don't try to write it because it's kind of would be difficult to try to write in a believable fashion.
Right.
Definitely. Well,
totally.
That was good. I would definitely have to probably check up on that too, because again, I didn't get to read it because it was added kind of late, and as Four String said, that's 14 chapters you said?
Yes.
So yeah, like, that would have been kind of hard for me to read through that.
I forgot to say this, but the author did make a post about he wants to write a sequel. He kind of wants to write a sequel. He's actually got an outline there, so we might see more in this particular series in the future.
All right. Well, it's good that you didn't spoil it. Like, someone else might have if they talked about it. But, okay, now let's move on to the music. And Four String picked out a couple of songs this week. And by a couple, I mean 2.
I got some songs. I got some songs. I got some songs that I'm going to talk about right now. One of those songs is entitled First Flight, and it's by Evening Star. I am in absolute love with this song. I heard it for the first time.
Oh my god.
I heard it for the first time last night, and I'm just like, oh my god, I can't even.
You broke down
even if
crying.
It's about Scootaloo. Even if it's about Scootaloo, I don't care. It is an awesome song. Basically, the synopsis behind it is it's supposed to simulate like this kind of feel of flying, kind of like soundtrack, if you were flying, especially if it was like, again, the first flight. And the whole idea behind it, I guess, really it's like Scootaloo flying for the first time. It's kind of a companion piece to a older song that the creator, Evening Star, did. I'll have to try to check it out here so I can figure out what that one's called. Oh, One Day I Will Fly is a kind of continuation of that song. But yeah, it's piano mainly, and it's instrumental. But oh my god, I'm in love with it, and I think especially just because it creates such a cool feeling of this whole flying. Like it's one of the most fitting, I think, soundtracks to that feeling that I think I've ever heard, and it really actually makes me hope that in season 3 we get a point where Scootaloo does finally fly, because it's like I want to, it's just like I don't want to. It's not that I want to hear this song playing when it's happening, although it'd be cool, but it's more of a like, and I'm sure someone will do it if it does happen. They'll like play this in the background, but it's more of just a like, oh my god, this is such a cool, uplifting, fun song, and I'm like, okay, now I'm really rooting for her. I hope she finally flies, and isn't like destined to never fly because she's like her wings are broken or something. I don't know.
Because she's good.
But yeah, but that was the first song that I did this week, and you should definitely check it out and check out some other songs by Evening Star. There's a lot of really cool stuff there that I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy. And then the second song I picked this week is from a genre that we haven't really touched on yet, and that is classic rock. The song is entitled Ponies of War, parentheses, No Ponies Land, and it's by an artist named Kenneth.
It's no pony land. Heaven or hell, it's no pony's land. Heaven or hell, it's no pony's land. Heaven or hell, it's no pony's land. It's not a heaven or hell, it's no pony's land. Heaven or hell, it's no pony's land. Heaven or hell, it's no pony's land. It's not a heaven or hell, it's no pony's land. Yeah!
No, not Nemesis, the other Kenneth. And but
I thought that was his real name.
Yeah, his real name is Nemesis. I forgot. I'm sorry. But also a very cool song. Very old-fashioned rock tune, and obviously has a war theme to it. I
felt very Vietnam-y.
Yeah. The theme actually was ponies in trench warfare, and yeah, it does definitely feel very Vietnamish, and I think it's kind of because Vietnamish. Vietnam. Imagine that for a second. But
oh gosh.
But yeah. The idea is like war is hell. Back in the day, it was even worse. Ponies fought in trenches and it was a constant stalemate. They called it No Ponies Land. Anyway, yeah, it's just a very interesting song. That Vietnam theme, if you feel at least, that kind of fits because it is a classic song, kind of along the lines of what you might hear in like the 60s or 70s in terms of rock. And vocalist, very good too. Like, doesn't like take away, detract from the overall enjoyment of it. So, yeah, I think you should definitely check this out if you're into classic rock, because it's definitely something you don't hear much in the fandom music-wise. And plus it's just totally a good song. And if you're into like that whole war thing too, lyrically there's a lot of really cool like undertones of like war and some shouting of like I think it's gun for your life is what they keep yelling or something like that. But yeah, very interesting song. So those are the two songs I picked this week, and I hope and pray you enjoy them as much as I did.
I had the same reaction. The first one was, "Oh my god!" Well, I was like, I listened to it, and then I listened to it again, and then I listened to it again. I'm like, I can't stop. Then I went in and just listened to the first one he did. That was the fly. One Day I Will Fly. I was like, oh my god, this is a great. I just like, I can't stop listening to this.
I know it's.
I just loved it.
So yeah, like I think someone said in I think the comments that they were like, you just remind me of Zim. This reminds me of like something like Hans Zimmer could do, and I'm like, well, I mean that's some high praise there, but I mean this is very good. And this is something you could definitely hear in, some sort of like movie, and like you would definitely feel uplifted, which is good because flying, haha. But man, this is something that should be a lot bigger than it is. I mean, like it only has as of right now about 4,000, 5,000 hits, but you know, it should have more.
Yeah.
The
Just
song was
saying.
so good, you immediately went up to your roof and tried to fly.
I did. It didn't work. Luckily, I'm only a one-story house, so I didn't get hurt too much.
And there were some children for you to land on to break your fall.
Oh, hey, look, in the related videos for this first flight video is the Great and Powerful Bender video that I was talking
Yeah,
about.
I noticed that.
Of course.
I saw that, I was like, wait, like, what is this? And then when you mentioned it, I was like, oh, that's what that video is.
Yeah, that's what it is, yep.
I'll have to check that
Oh,
out
God,
later.
it is hilarious.
And then the Ponies of War, I was like, wow, because I was when I saw the name, I was like, what is this? Is this another like marching piece? And
Yeah,
this is I was not expecting that.
exactly, yeah. And it's just something I don't think you expect a lot in general from this fandom, just because we don't get that much. We don't get like I mean, we get rock sometimes, we certainly don't get more of like a classic 60s, 70s rock feel.
Yeah.
So that's what
when
was
I was listening to it, it kind of it made me feel like, I was kind of thinking, I was reminding me of like CCR and stuff, Clearwater Revival. I was
Very,
like, wow.
very fair
I was
assessment,
like,
yeah.
this feels very much like Vietnam. I was like,
Very awesome.
should I be? It's like, I was like, should I actually be like wearing a helmet or something, or
Right.
getting on a bus right now?
Yeah, exactly.
Man, I thought it was very good choices, both of them.
Yeah, I was excited this week. We had some good stuff.
Yeah, they were alright.
Funky, you don't have to act like Art, okay? Just because he's here.
Yeah, these songs were good and all, but
not
I've heard
here.
better ones in the Homestuck fandom. No, but yeah, like, I pretty much share my sentiments with everyone else, and I can't really say anything that you guys haven't already said like 100 times already, but especially about the first one. But yeah, like, I really enjoyed these two, so definitely worth checking out, I would say.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad people enjoyed them, and I hope you listeners out there enjoy them too. Because if you don't, then
You will never fly.
you will never you'll never know how it feels to fly. Yeah, something like that.
And I think we've already come to the end of the podcast already, of this
Well,
episode.
it's not that long. I mean, we've been going about normal. Like,
No, well, yes, yeah.
We've made good time.
I'd say so.
The the convention talk didn't last 2 hours, so that's a good start.
I could have kept going, but I just decided, nah, I'll just stop rambling.
But yeah, that seems about it for this week. And as always, you can check us out on Libsyn here on YouTube. If you're watching the video, and also iTunes. Because we're on there, and I forget all the other places that we're on. I think we're also on Adult Friend Finder. I'm not sure.
We just made an account last week, and
I was just making sure. I think Art may have made that account.
yeah, Art's really lonely.
I want to
He
go
wants-
for
he wants
the
a-
Lex ponies.
He wants a nice.
Do.
Is it okay to keep a pony inside your house?
Anyway,
Yeah, it's like links to all the stuff that we talked about and to all the places you can listen or download this podcast will be provided in all the in every place that we have them here. Apparently,
Keep downloading. We had a lot of downloads this week, and we want more.
yeah, it blew my mind how many downloads we had for episode 6.
Yeah, that's the power of Calpain, I guess. We'll say.
I guess.
or the power of having hope stuck in your title.
It better not.
That
be
actually-
Homestuck.
That's what I was thinking. Actually, I was like, Nemesis is gonna be really pissed if that's the case.
He's gonna quit the podcast. But I believe that's it for this week. Just find us everywhere: Libsyn, YouTube, iTunes, and what have you. And
Follow us
As
on
al-
Twitter.
he is on Twitter. Yes, we have.
Even though we don't tweet very much, but it's because we all have our own accounts. But
I think Fortune has like 5 other accounts.
yeah, my most popular one being Mike the Microphone and Purple Tinker. Those are my most well known ones. If you've heard of those.
You may have.
No, just kidding. I am neither of those people. I am but a lone pony, a pone, as
In the
some say.
vast sea of ponies.
In the vast sea of there were plenty of ponies.
And is there anything else I failed to mention before I close this off? Because I always forget how you end it. How we usually end it.
Yeah, we talk about ponying responsibly. I know there's that.
Yeah, but before any professional podcast here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we don't know. I don't know. I need to go watch the debate. So.
Well, on that note, everyone, always, please, I beg of you, just please always pony responsibly.